Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. Today I begin the second week in discussing a topic that I have themed relationships that men should avoid. During the first week, I covered 5 different sessions, but I focused on a particular type of relationship that I think men should avoid. I start this new week, and in this new series, I focus on a different type of relationship that men should avoid. I like to preface what I think could be an interesting session. Think about your life and think about what you want to achieve in the future. Usually, we start off by setting a goal, a dream, an idea about something we want to achieve, something we want to be, something we want to do, something we want to have. We put that in what we call a goal setting task or umbrella. I like you to think of relationships in a similar manner. A relationship can be an obstacle to your success. It can be an accelerant to your success. As a matter of fact, relationships act like multipliers. It magnifies the possibility of success if it's the right relationship. It minimizes and restricts the probability of success if it is the wrong relationship. But it goes further with the wrong relationship. It sometimes sabotages that future. So, let me preface and start this conversation this week by posing a question. What are your relationship goals? And who are you in relationship with? Now, many years ago when I started goal setting, I used to start as follows. I would decide what I wanted to have, to be, to do, or experience. And when I chose a goal, I always found myself starting with the presumption that I wasn't deserving of the goal. So for example, let's say you set a goal to buy a pencil. The first thing I thought in my head was, I don't know if I deserve that pencil. It took me many, many years to come to the realization that that was the wrong question. The question should always start as follows. Is the goal worthy of me? The reason you are exchanging a part of your life, your time, your resources, your greatness, everything and your potential, everything about you in exchange for that goal. Time is the first resource we have. We exchange time for everything we have to acquire wisdom and knowledge, to develop relationships, or perhaps to sow seeds into people's lives. But whatever we have in life represents what we were and have been able, directly or indirectly, to exchange our time for. Whatever we do not have in our lives represents what we were unwilling, or other people on our behalf were unwilling to exchange their time for. With relationships, men make the mistake of thinking, especially when it comes to relationship with the opposite sex, where they are hoping to have intimacy. They start off with a presupposition that the relationship is something they have to earn. And we always begin as men by thinking, well, do I deserve her or do I deserve it? As a man, I would like you to change that concept. I would like you to begin starting today by thinking about relationships as follows. Is the relationship worthy of me? You will be exchanging a part of your life, your time, in exchange for the relationship and the outcomes that come with the relationship. And therefore, always begin by recognizing yourself as important. And therefore, the relationship has to qualify for your time, your presence. The relationship has to qualify for what should be a fair exchange. Now, I'd like you to ask yourself a second question. Who are you around? This might be an exercise you have to think about, particularly in this day and age where we are connected digitally, not just physically. You see, many years ago when I was still very young, or decades ago when I was still very young, the question would have been perhaps, who am I around? What are the people I'm associating with? What are the people I am in proximity to? What are the people that I allow to influence me? What are the environments that I put myself in to be influenced? And how is such relationships, experience, environment affecting, influencing my outcomes in my life? In this digital age that we have these days, things have changed. We used to have what we called 6 degrees of separation. The concept was a simple one. Irrespective of where you were in the world, there were 6 people between you and someone else. In other words, it doesn't matter whether you were, let's say, in Malaysia and I in London, England. If you wanted to get to me, for example, if you had a letter to get to me, even if you did not know where I lived in London, in 6 steps, 6 people interactions, you can get the letter from yourself to me. For example, it could start with you giving it to someone you know who is traveling to London. And upon arrival, the person has to find someone who they can give it to, the intent being, let's see how many steps we take to get to me. And over many years, the number was 6. In this digital age, the number is 1. As a matter of fact, we should say 0. You can turn on your social media devices and you can be in contact with so many people directly. You don't need intermediaries. And so the question about who are you around has morphed into who is influencing you? What voices are you listening to? Who is feeding either, you might say, good seed into your mind, into your intellect and into your spirit, or who is pouring poison into your mind, into your spirit, and into your physical body? A very important question. Who is influencing you? And who are you allowing to influence you? And most importantly, is the relationship deserving of you? Is the goal worthy of you? Now, why does this matter? In the sessions that come after this, and this week particularly, what I would hope to explain to you and show is how, as a man, time is your most important asset. Many a times, we think that all relationships that are good are for us. You see, the enemy of something that is, in this particular instance, excellence, is not something bad. It could be something very good or something good. It's not always the opposite function. Something good can sabotage you from achieving something excellent. An average relationship can sabotage you from having a meaningful relationship. Think about relationships as occupying spaces. If you fill the space with the wrong relationship, then you have no space for the right relationship. So it's better for you to be void of a relationship rather than be in the wrong relationship. I'd like you to take this as a useful exercise. Get a glass of Coke. Pour the glass of Coke, or the can of Coke, or the bottle of Coke into a transparent bottle or a transparent jug. Get a jug of water. Now, before you start the exercise, check the size of Coke you pour into the container. Let's say it's 330 ml. Get a jug of water, and I would like you to get a large enough jug, pour the Coke into the large enough jug, get another jug of water, and the task is simple. I'd like you to pour the clean, clear water into the jug of Coke and keep pouring water until you get to a point where it seems as though the Coke has been diluted completely to the point where you have almost clean, clear water. in the other container. Before you begin the exercise, I want you to keep and pay attention to two things. Number one, how long it takes to get to that ultimate outcome of clean, clear water in this jug. And number two, how much quantity of water in ml or liters that you've expended to get the glass containing Coke to be crystal clear. What you find is it takes so much energy and time and resources to dilute Coke back to what it should be. Negative relationships represent what you might say relate Coke contained in the jar. Positive and good relationships are what you need to dilute and remove all of the negativity that has come your way. Hence, we start with something I call the negative art to relationship success, which is you don't have to go through the process of learning from your failures if you're willing to just avoid making such mistakes. By avoiding the wrong relationships, by knowing how to walk away from the wrong relationships, by cutting your losses and saying, well, this relationship has run its course, by saying to yourself, this relationship is not deserving or worthy of me, you can prevent all of the time, resources, energy that you would expend in trying to dilute all of the negativity you may have received from being in the wrong relationship. Now, we live in three levels of what I call consciousness. We are spiritual beings. We have an intellect. We live in a physical body. Relationships affect us on those three levels: spiritually, intellectually or mentally, and physically. The wrong relationship can motivate you to go to the gym as a man and exercise and stay grounded and succeed in sports and look after yourself and eat well, and therefore your well-being physically can be in a peak state. The right relationships can do all of that. The wrong relationships, on the other hand, might be one that encourages you to go to the pub regularly, to drink too much, to overindulge. I talk about the 7 deadly sins. To overindulge in gluttony, whether it be gluttony in food, porn, carbohydrates, or anything that is not edible and good for you. So the right and the wrong relationships can affect you physically. Now, in our intellect, we have intellectual faculties: imagination, intuition, memory, focus, perception, and all of those intellectual faculties can be influenced by the wrong people. The way we see life, the perspective we have, is expanded or contracted based on the relationships we surround ourselves with. As a man, your ability to see further often requires another man, another person who is willing to invest what they have seen in you and give you a different lens. So you get to appreciate what could be. You get to learn how to dream, and you have someone to guide you along a pathway that you've never experienced. Your ability to focus, or your will, can either be altered, disturbed by your inability to stay focused on a dream. Relationships that cause you to be distracted, to sabotage your focus, will affect your intellect. Now, your imagination, perhaps the most powerful of your intellectual faculties, is how you pre-play the future. With our memory, another intellectual faculty, we can replay the past. With our imagination, we can pre-play the future. In the wrong relationships, we are reminded about the errors of our past. In the right relationships, you're encouraged to dream, to create a vision, to aspire for something better, to stay disciplined, to have focus. Relationships can affect you intellectually, and they can affect you physically, but also they can affect you spiritually. It's important to understand as a man, your value will come from a number of ways. I provide in a series of sessions that I have done how to assess a man's value. I choose two, which I think are the most important. your manhood value, and your character value. I wouldn't have time to go into a man's value in this series, but I think it is very important to go back and understand. Now, we tend to lean on a man's economic intrinsic value, in other words, his productivity. But I don't consider your EIV, your economic intrinsic value, to be as important as your character value or your manhood value. As a matter of fact, your manhood value and your character value, in my perspective and in my opinion, make up to about 70% of your overall value as a man. Your economic intrinsic value, your gentleman's value, your non-sexual marketplace value, your reproductive fertility value, and others make up the remaining 30% of your overall value, aggregated roughly 6% per unit for the others. Now, the reason I'm explaining this is the right relationship would encourage you and guide you into becoming a man. You see, we're born male. We journey into boyhood. We do that by modeling other people or modeling our environment. We transition from boyhood to manhood through work, hard work, study, practice, work. But we move from being a man to being a gentleman by being crafted. To become a gentleman, you have to be crafted for manhood. Most young men go from male to boyhood and they skip manhood. Sometimes they arrive at being gentlemen, but they have this void because they had the wrong relationships. Some of those relationships may have been loved ones. Now, I have come to learn that one of the things you have to understand about relationships is that some relationships are right for you for certain phases of your life, at certain seasons, or rather in certain seasons. When the season has run its entire course, it's important to transition to the right relationship. You disconnect with love. You don't claim to be better than they are, but the focus should always be your purpose and your dream. Now, let me close today's session by talking about the 6 Ps, because this will form the core of relationships that men should avoid as I move forward. Every man needs to focus on 6 Ps. Purpose. Now, this is in relationships, fundamentally, and I'm talking about relationships that require some level of intimacy. Purpose, provision, protection, your priestly duties, and learning how to profess your love through your presence. Now, in the sessions to follow, I will break down and expand on relationships that men should avoid. Understand something. I'm focused on the outcomes. Like in the first week, I covered single mothers. I have nothing against single mothers. I know some who are incredible women. I'm focused on outcomes for men. Now, all I'm simply doing is, like a scientist, I'm simply saying, you take 2 parts of hydrogen, you mix it with 1 part of oxygen, you get H2O. A compound you can drink. It's colorless, it's odorless, it nourishes you. You take 2 parts of hydrogen, you mix with 2 parts of oxygen, you get a different compound, H2O2, hydrogen peroxide. It's odorless, it's colorless. If you drink it, it could kill you. By altering the composition of the mix, you have a different outcome. For most men, the reason relationships sabotage our future is we're mixing ourselves, assuming ourselves to be whole, with relationships that are not whole. The diluted product is worse than if the outcome would have been had we remained alone. Now, I hope that's been useful.